What's up, everybody? Matt Parrino here, NYup.com, Syracuse.com, and I'm here at US Bank Stadium, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the site of the biggest upset of the NFL season so far. I would think so. The Buffalo Bills are winners, finally. Week 3, it took the Bills to get their first victory, but they get it today in grand fashion. Josh Allen, rookie quarterback, 7th overall draft pick, goes on the road for the first time in the NFL, picks up a massive win, and by most accounts going into this game, I feel like most people were just talking about what does Josh Allen need to do in this game for it to be a win for him and for the organization. I think a lot of people, let me just bring up this live chat here, so if you guys have any questions, you let me know. There we go. I think going into this game, a lot of people wanted to know, we're writing the Bills off. I think they thought 16.5-point underdogs. The Bills are going to come on the road after that 47-3 opening week beat down to the Baltimore Ravens, and just kind of get pushed over by a very good Minnesota Vikings team that a lot of folks, a lot of experts were picking to come out of the NFC here, go to the Super Bowl this season. But from the opening kickoff, the first drive, Josh Allen and the Bills got the ball first. You knew right away they set the tone. There was a few penalties that kind of helped them along, but that 10-yard rushing touchdown by Josh Allen that's going to be playing on highlight reels, all season, but if not all season, definitely over the course of the next week, really set the tone for the game, and that's what this kid does. Heading down to the locker room after the game and talking to a few guys, Jordan Mills, right tackle specifically, I asked him and I said, what is it that's so special about this guy? There's so many, players that are saying there's just something about Josh Allen, that he's a gamer and he's a competitor. And the most important thing is he wants to win. I keep going back to this story and it's getting played out now, but you see him in the locker room after practice, a full NFL practice, and he's on the ping pong table battling with his teammates. He wants to win games, and he said it in his post-game press conference that that's his main focus. He even said that I thought was interesting, he's still mad about a few of the plays that he missed. Obviously the long ball to Robert Foster. He underthrew one down the field at one point as well. But there's still a lot of improvement to be had. But, for a rookie quarterback, to go on the road like this, just their second career start, and put up the kind of game that he did, to have Minnesota on the ropes, and not only on the ropes, but the game all but over by halftime. They cruised in the second half. Josh Allen didn't even have to throw the ball. He threw 172 yards in the first half. I think he finished with around 200. One passing touchdown, two rushing touchdowns. It was a complete effort. I think if you're a Bills fan that was struggling in those first 2 weeks, a lot of positives to take out of this game. Obviously, a win on the road is always good, but a lot of different things that we talked about over the course of the preseason training camp, came to fruition in this game. Brian Dable, offensive coordinator, you saw him get to kind of open up the playbook a little bit, utilize some of these, speedy guys out of the backfield. Even Chris Ivory in the passing game, finishing with 70 receiving yards, and one big one came on that 55-yard play, which, another great play by Allen, scrambling out, creating some more time, throwing across his body and finding Chris Ivory, and everything went right for this team from an offensive perspective. A defensive perspective, Di Summers says, get him some wide receivers. That's a great point. As good as this game went, there was two specific plays that if the Vikings offense was going and the Bills defense wasn't playing as well as it was in this game, could have been real, game changers, momentum shifters. Kelvin Benjamin in the first quarter dropped what would have been on 3rd and goal, dropped a ball right at the 1-yard line that would have set up 1st and goal. Bills had a chance to go up 14-0. Instead, they kick a field goal. If this game comes down to, 3 or 4 points, that's a play that could cost the Bills. And, I think he dropped another ball, made a couple plays, but Kelvin Benjamin's a big issue. LeSean McCoy, before Allen's first start, said something very interesting. He said, we as veterans, you look at, Kelvin Benjamin, you look at LeSean McCoy, Charles Clay, guys that have been in this league that have done it for a while, they have to make plays for this guy, for this rookie, to give him some confidence. And, Charles Clay later on in the game, he dropped what would have been a touchdown. Now, it was a tough play. It was over his shoulder. He was running away from running to the ball, trying to track it down, and he dropped it, but it touched his hands. And it was a very, makeable play. And you have to make those, especially you go on the road next week against Green Bay. The defense played well today, but if Aaron Rodgers has a big day, you're going to need all the points you can get. So if your veterans aren't making plays, that's going to impact a rookie quarterback. But listen, those are negatives. I think we should focus on the positives coming out of this game. We haven't had a lot to talk about in the first 2 weeks. Allen was phenomenal. I mean, you like his moxie. I've talked about it at times throughout the preseason. He feels like a QB1, right? He has that personality. I think his teammates really look at him in that respect. And LeSean McCoy tweeted after the game. He was inactive today, still dealing with some issues from that rib injury, and he tweeted, Josh Allen's my favorite player. I mean, these guys, there's excitement around him. I mean, he's a young quarterback. He's a very game-breaking type of players, and those are the kinds of names you see on the marquee, right? Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, guys that can make big plays happen, and there's so much potential here. And Allen didn't even really make the big plays downfield that he's known for today. It was just the way that he managed the game and the way that he made the plays that were there to be made against a very tough defense in Minnesota. And credit Brian Dable for that. They really utilized the screen well all across the field. The touchdown pass that Josh Allen threw to Jason Kroom was actually set up by a fake on a swing screen to Marcus Murphy in the backfield. The defender bid on it, left Jason Kroom wide open down the right side for an easy touchdown. So everything really went well today. Let's see what any more questions coming in. Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, he is going to be all right. Let's move on over to the defensive side of the ball. So where to start? Jerry Hughes. Wow, what a game for Jerry Hughes, a guy that has been making plays for this defense for several years. It's been a few since he put up double-digit sacks, but, the potential for, disruption and the ability to frustrate the quarterback is there all the time with Hughes, and he was getting it done today consistently. I think, bringing Riley Reif talked about it, left tackle for the Minnesota Vikings after the game, about how good this defensive line was. I don't know if a lot of people were buying into that in Buffalo heading into this game, but even Mike Zimmer talked about it going into the week. A guy that's known for being a defensive-minded coach, likes what he's seeing with this line. Trent Murphy had a big game today. He was bringing some pressure. Left and he didn't return. He might be questionable going forward. He's dealt with a groin injury throughout preseason, so that's something to keep an eye on. But the pressure was there. Matt Milano, linebacker that's had a lot of success. His sack, as part of a nice little trifecta for him, a sack, a forced fumble, and an interception. On the sack, it was Jerry Hughes that was bringing really, really strong pressure on the outside that led to Milano being able to get inside, bring down Kirk Cousins. And I spoke with Jordan Poyer, safety for the Bills, heading into this game, and I said, what do you guys got to do to be successful here? I mean, this is one of the most dynamic wide receiver duos in the league. Most people are calling them the best wide receiver tandem in the league, and Stefan Diggs and Adam Thielen. And Jordan Poyer says nothing's changing for us. We just have to play our game. It was Lafayette Pitts, who didn't see a lot of action today. He played a little bit last week for Phillip Gaines, who missed today as well. And he basically said, Lafayette Pitts told me that we got to disguise our coverages because Kirk Cousins does a good job at analyzing at the line of scrimmage, and once he knows what you're going to do, that's when he attacks. And Ryan Lewis stepped in that second cornerback spot. Tre'Davious White had another very strong day, and the Bills turned the ball over. And last year, when the Bills were at their best, I think they finished the season. They were in the bottom when you looked at all the big team stat categories, right? But what they did is they turned the ball over. They didn't beat themselves. And, listen, you win the turnover battle like they did today, 3-0, and you're going to win a lot of football games this year. Yeah, I agree. Patrick talking about Kelvin Benjamin and Charles Clay needing to step up. And I think that they would tell you that. Didn't speak to them down in the locker room. Very, joyful locker room. Not a lot of shocked looks on any faces in that Buffalo Bills room. These guys, they're buying in. It's like such a cliche, and we talk about it, and it kind of becomes kind of funny after a while, this whole trust the process, catchphrase that Sean McDermott has coined here. But it's true. I mean, these guys have bought in there. They believe in what is happening here. And when you take a game like this, even after the rough start, it's hard to say anything negative about what Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane are doing here. And when you could take a game like this where you've had some success and look at the big picture, there's a lot to build on. And there are 10 draft picks, a lot of money to be spent next offseason. But listen, that was the narrative going into the week. I think now we're kind of transitioning to, and this week coming up, we're going to be talking a lot about what's the ceiling for this Bills team in 2018. I mean, you come into Minnesota, a team that, like I said, is a trendy Super Bowl pick with an $84 million quarterback, the first ever fully guaranteed contract for Kirk Cousins. And he has his supporters and his detractors, but that's neither here nor there. When you come in here with a vaunted defense like this and an offense that's been putting up the gaudy numbers that they've been putting up early on in the season, I think you have to kind of switch now to the mindset, if you're a Bills fan, man, what is the ceiling for this team now? You go on the road to Green Bay. That's a tough game. You hope you could play tough and hang in there. And if somehow you win, but even if you don't, you come back home to Tennessee, then 2 road games at Houston, at Indianapolis. It's going to be tough. I mean, they're 5-7 on the road, but if you could somehow get to that 7-game point in the season and somehow be at or around 500, maybe even 3-4, you go into that New England Patriots Monday night game, and all of a sudden, Josh Allen versus Tom Brady on national TV. Wow. I mean, that's the big time. And now we're talking about a completely different, scenario for this team and this organization in this city that we weren't even contemplating going into this week, with a Bills team that was a 16.5-point underdog heading into the game. I think, D stands for dominance. And yes, it was a dominant performance by this defense today. An exciting time to be a Bills fan. I think it'll be a nice break from what has been a very tumultuous first few weeks, right? I mean, especially around, one Bills drive. It's almost like, the players and the coaches, they knew that this was coming, but it's hard to kind of answer those questions over and over again about, what's going on? Why isn't this working? You made the playoffs last year. Then you come out and you get blown out. You give up 28 points to the Chargers in the first half last week, but something that we haven't talked about last week, Vontae Davis up and decides to retire at halftime last week. Many people wonder if, is it just maybe an Anquan Bolden situation? Did Vontae Davis just not want to play for this team anymore? And, I understand that maybe he didn't feel like he can do it. It made the decision easier, but, it sparked this Bills team. I mean, Sean McDermott took over the play calling duties. It looks like in this game, from everything I've been able to gather, Sean McDermott gave Leslie Frazier the play calling duties back for this game. Joe Buscaglia, Channel 7, he noted that it seemed like McDermott had his play sheet in his back pocket for the game. And Frazier reportedly told somebody in the locker room downstairs that, I believe it was Vic Carucci, that he did in fact call the play. So, but everything that transpired at halftime of the Chargers game seems to have catapulted this Bills team into uncharted waters after what was trending to be a very, very forgettable and disappointing season. I mean, when you're in after week 2 and you're talking about, potentially being the first overall draft pick in next year's draft, I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow for a fan base. And, Vontae Davis decides to retire, and this team and the veterans on this team, Lorenzo Alexander, Kyle Williams, Micah Hyde, I mean, they've talked about it all along. You just got to keep doing it. Kyle Williams, you got to keep doing it week after week, play after play, and show up to practice, play like you practice, and today was a perfect example of how they've been able to do that. Exciting time. Let me see if there's any more questions here before I get out of here. I don't think there are. Yeah, all of ESPN went for the Vikings today. Nobody went for the Bills. That's a sweet one for Bills fans, I would imagine. Listen, guys, I'll have you covered. I'm here in Minnesota. We'll have a few more stories coming out today, and then we'll be at back in Buffalo. Sean McDermott press availability tomorrow at 4 p.m. At One Bills Drive. Keep it locked on to NewYorkUpstate.com, NYup.com, and Syracuse.com for all your Bills coverage following this game. Thanks for joining me for this live chat, and we'll see you next week.